me several weeks to put together an exact outline for my season 1 essay series. So much so that ChatGPT started roasting me because I kept rearranging the outline instead of writing the first essay. One of the last essays to be cut, at least according to my notes, was an essay on Cara. When I first started envisioning this essay series, I thought it was going to be across all 3 seasons that had currently been released, and that made Cara impossible to not talk about. According to the old outlines, there was also a time where I thought I was going to have so little information to talk about in regards to Riley that I didn't think I would have 20 minutes of material for either of them. Apparently, there was also a period of time where I was going to talk about baseball and have Cara in that essay. However, eventually I realized that I need to talk about the show season by season, with essays explaining what's necessary to understand the season-long plot. This is why I will eventually loop around and do another season 1 essay series, because there are just too many things that I don't know the importance of long term, because, well, the series isn't over yet. When this essay series shifted focus to season 1, my dedicated Cara essay was the last to be cut. I had a very strong feeling that between the caregiving stuff and the drama with Manny and his place in the family, Luke just had too much information to simply have one essay, and so when I split Luke's essays in half, like I did with Vince and Sharon, I had to get something, and Cara's was the only thing I thought I could cut. If I just said I cut Cara out, you are probably wondering why I'm doing an essay about her anyway, especially when I could be doing one about Charlie, Freddie, or Rebecca, who are all bigger presences in season 1, and I will get around to those in my second essay series. I was going to stick Cara in there too, but I think Cara is important for us to look at now because she has this look into the Leone family that the show is still hiding from us, or at least still hiding from us as of the Elite, which is the last episode I've watched. Talking about Cara in season 1, particularly the first 16 episodes, is tricky. She only has 3 episodes total. Get Your Hopes Up, where she has a major plot with Sharon, Mama Bear, where she attends Sharon's kidney raiser, and A Fear to Remember, where her plot is frankly just being Jake's love interest. Like I've talked about, I don't particularly like talking about female characters if their entire essay is going to be about orbiting a man. The only reason Gabriella gets a pass is because her arc is largely about her choosing him, not the other way around. Cara doesn't really get any agency until season 2, so talking about her in season 1 is hard. Though admittedly, what I like about Get Your Hopes Up is that her past isn't framed in relation to Bodhi, but instead in relation to Sharon. Get Your Hopes Up is the first time we see Vince and Sharon in their bedroom. In the pilot, we meet Vince and Sharon as a couple in the kitchen, but we weren't really invited into their home until Like Old Times. Get Your Hopes Up is the 4th time we see inside their house, and we are finally in their bedroom. Vince is excitedly chattering about Bodhi coming to the station to work for the day, while Sharon, still on medical leave, gets a notification from her electronic health record that she's eligible for transplant. Vince has to go to work, and Sharon stays home. While she's watching TV, Cara comes over first to bring soup, and then later, after she is the victim of an electrical burn which causes a heart attack, and both Sharon and Cara nearly die. If you've watched my essay series, you'll know I see Fire Country as a show that is entirely about abuse and its ripple outward. Cara, to me, is one of the strongest examples of how abuse doesn't just stay within a person. As a recap, Vince Leone suffered severe pervasive abuse from his father. That abuse shaped how Vince interacted with the world, and that interaction with the world often landed as emotional abuse on Bodhi. The abuse specifically took the shape of Vince being a good dad when regulated, and being a terrible, awful dad when he was dysregulated. Because of this, Bodhi constantly felt the pressure to police his dad's emotions, including trying to make his father proud of him. I've said this before, but Bodhi and Riley's teen years are kind of a barren wasteland. It's very clear to me that all of the characters know what happened in their past, but so far our memories are sparse, and I think we get more of them in this episode than we do in the rest of the show. To bring back my handy-dandy graphic, the Maisonette family lived on the other side of the Leone family versus the Crawfords. Cara and Bodhi began dating at some point and would frequently sneak out on school nights. It seems to me they had that really cute thing going where two kids date and their families just kind of merge. Cara shared dirty jokes with Sharon, and Vince told Cara's parents a million times to redo their old wiring. But there are two very specific examples that I think paint just how close these families were. First, we see that Sharon took Cara to get her IUD when she was a teenager. It's that practical idea that Sharon knows they're having sex and would like to not be a grandma yet. We also hear that Cara was a frequent visitor at family dinners and she recalls Vince's Sunday sauce. I was planning on having a whole separate video on cooking, and I think I will when I get around to seasons 3 or 4, but this is a family tradition passed down from Vince's mom to Vince and Luke, and maybe to Bodhi. The cooking went the other way around as well. The entire reason Cara brought Sharon soup is because she loved Cara's mom's soup so much. It wasn't just a current life that Cara and Bodhi were living together as teenagers, they were also building towards the future. Cara had dreams of becoming a nurse like her mom, and we know that Bodhi did want to become Cal Fire, doing drills at the station with Jake when he was a teenager. However, they both decided to put those plans on hold. Bodhi had been awarded a baseball scholarship, though I've always kind of felt they hinted that it wasn't a baseball scholarship so much as a chance to play in the minors, since I find it hard to believe Cara wouldn't have been able to get into a BSN program at the same college, or even an RN program at a nearby community college. However, minor league baseball players are on the road a lot, which would make getting an RN degree pretty difficult. But we all know that this all-American story where they go off to live their dreams before coming home and following in their parents' footsteps isn't what happened. In 2009, Bodhi's senior year, at the county clash game between Edgewater High and Eel River High, a player named Drew crashed into Bodhi. Drew said it was a normal injury in the course of playing baseball, and Bodhi says it was a dirty play. Regardless, we know that it destroyed Bodhi's MCL. We don't know exactly what happened from here, but we know the highlights. Bodhi broke up with Cara and then got into pills. At some point, he was lured from pills into illicit drugs by a guy named Rick. Eventually, he became friends with Mojave, and it's also possible that he started working for his step-grandfather West. But we don't have any confirmation on that. While nowhere near as dramatic, Cara seems to have gone down a bad path too. Very close to her breakup, she had sex with Rick and got pregnant, going to hide out in Europe for several months, then coming back to call her daughter her sister. It's also implied that Cara left town at some point, but must have come back about 2 to 4 years before the start of the show, as she takes her NCLEX nursing exam between Get Your Hopes Up and Mama Bear. By the time we see her in Get Your Hopes Up, her parents have died. She's preparing their house to be sold. While grieving, she decides to make soup and take it over to Sharon, who the community has recently learned is dying. From there, we get to see the entire misogynistic Sharon come out in full force. Sharon is angry because even though Bodhi made all of the decisions, she believes Cara broke up with him, therefore apparently making his choices her fault. By the end of the episode, Sharon does like her again, but it's not because they went through the trauma of nearly dying together during a power outage. Instead, Cara says Bodhi broke up with her, and that just flips the switch. Cara is interesting to me not just because of the happy life she had envisioned with Bodhi, but because of the idea that she knows secrets that we, the audience, haven't been made privy to yet. Cara's memories of the family live entirely within the years we know nothing about. She claims the two families grew apart because of Riley, and when Sharon references Riley's death, Cara references an earlier incident, an incident that was seemingly referenced again in the Season 2 episode Alert the Sheriff by Mickey, another character whose memories of the family are entirely concentrated before Bodhi became an adult. The episode gives us an important hint that Vince and Bodhi didn't always have such a terrible relationship. Instead, Bodhi often sought his dad's approval, and that included playing baseball. We also learned joining Cal Fire was something Bodhi seriously considered, but thought that the chances of failing and disappointing Vince would be too high, so he set his hopes on baseball, and we all know that didn't happen. But back in the present, we see Cara come in after the faulty wiring caused her to get an electrical burn. Sharon tries to treat her while waiting for the ambulance, and Cara has a heart attack. Sharon does CPR, which brings Cara back, but since Sharon has stage 5 kidney disease and the power outage stopped her dialysis, she nearly passed out. Vince grabs an engine with the intent of taking Sharon to the hospital, but Arthur and another background firefighter end up only taking Cara, with Vince and Sharon waiting for the next ambulance, and then yelling at the crew unfairly, but that's because they're incredibly stressed out that Sharon might die. Thankfully, Cara's electricity-induced heart attack didn't seem to have any lasting damages. We see her in the next episode coming both to the kidney raiser and Vince's makeup concert. Starting in Affair to Remember, we see major incidents involving the emergency crew from Edgewater Memorial, Cara included. I know this was a really short essay, less than 2,500 words, but I still thought making something small about Cara was important. She is vital to the fabric of the show, even if she was killed off in season 2. I wouldn't necessarily consider her among my favorites of these one season or I suppose 2 half seasons characters, but she is the only character that links us so strongly to the period of Bodhi and Riley's teenage years. I really want to know if Cara was also drinking with Bodhi, Jake, Eve, and Riley in spring break of 2009, or if Bodhi had already broken up with her. Baseball seems like a fall sport in the Fire Country universe, which makes no sense, but it does mean that Cara could have already been broken up with in that scene. I don't know. Honestly, just working on this essay has made me start really wishing that we get a prequel for the Fire Country fam. If you had asked me a week ago, I would have told you that my number one choice for a Fire Country prequel would have been when Sharon started at Station 42. But now I think we could have a really fun story of the kids as teenagers. I think Manny would have been at 3 Rock at that point, so we also could get glimpses of a younger Gabriella. Or, they could do both, because doesn't NCIS have 4 spin-offs now? I guess Tony and Ziva's canceled. Well, whatever. Anyway, talking about important couples in CBS franchises, I suppose it's time to start with our part 2 character essays where I go back to Sharon, Luke, and Vince and dissect them again. This is going to be really fun. I'm starting with Sharon, and the premise of this essay was actually something that I figured out in August, and they recently confirmed my point in November. Truly one of the best examples of my literary analysis paying off in my entire life, if you don't count my whole Walter Leone is actually evil essay coming out the week that he made us feel sorry for him that he saw Vince's dead body. I think you're really going to enjoy that essay because just like with my Station 42 essay, I'm going to talk about something the first season of the show never explicitly spells out, but that season 4 literally did right before our eyes, plainly. Although some people still debate what was said. But you know what? I'll get into that next week.